Let's now talk about what's happening at Texas A&M University. An ethics and public policy graduate course was canceled 3 days into the spring semester by the dean. Now, he canceled this because the professor, Dr. Leonard Bright, refused to submit the information needed to be exempt from a new ban on teaching gender and race ideology. Well, Dr. Bright shared on social media that his colleagues and students were informed about the cancellation of his ethics class before he was. This is the statement. Here's the message that TAMU sent to my entire college. My colleagues and students knew about the decision to cancel my ethics class before me. This disrespect my dean showed towards me was unwarranted. The message was clear. Be very afraid. No one can save you from being censored at Texas A&M. He and other faculty advocates expressed concerns about the lack of clarity regarding the rules of the ongoing course review, suggesting that administrators may be using this ambiguity to serve their advantage. Dr. Bright joins us right now. I'm glad to have you here. Doc, let's just be clear what's going on here. Texas is being governed by the Republican Taliban. What you have going on in Texas with Governor Greg Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, led by a crazed, deranged, right-wing state legislator who's an A&M graduate, led by a hardcore, right-wing, deranged website that all of the Republicans follow. What they want to do is they believe that Texas universities are too liberal, and they actually want to turn Texas A&M into the most conservative institution in the state. They're doing the exact same thing at University of Texas because they believe that they have gone too far left. They are imposing right-wing zealots in leadership positions as chancellors, as presidents, and putting them on boards. So let's be perfectly clear what's going on here in Texas. This is all driven by white Republican politics.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And at the end of the day, as you said, they want to create an education system that basically promotes their ideology, and anyone else's sort of perspectives, they want to be censored and removed or taken through a long sort of arduous process of validating that what you should say they approve of, and it is unfortunate, and Texas A&M certainly is one of those universities that said, at least in the past, that they value a broad, diverse education system, but it is clear that they are turning back on that idea, and now want to for lack of a better word, indoctrinate students toward one political agenda.
Absolutely. And when you look at, there's another professor who now says, based upon these new rules they put in place, he can't teach Plato, which is which is unbelievable. And that's what's going on. They want to take power out of the hands of the faculty senate. The previous president of Texas A&M, General Welsh, will be a very good man. They felt he was too supportive of woke, of diversity. The governor got involved, saying that the president did not cancel Texas A&M attending a conference to recruit minority graduate students, that he would fire the president. These people do not believe in academic freedom. They do not believe in diversity of thought. And let's be clear. Texas is a state that is 60% people of color, 60% minority. What Republicans in Texas want to do is they want white domination, white control, adherence to a white right-wing ideology.
Yes. Now, and one thing I would say is, when they were considering some of the policies that Texas A&M have put in place, this prohibition on this thing they're calling race ideology, which or gender ideologies. I mean, we're like, who does that? I mean, I don't know any professor that does that, and we're like, yeah, sure, yes, we don't do that, so good. We're good, right? And then it became evident that, I mean, obviously they realized that, well, that's not going to do what they wanted. So they revised the policy to kind of convolute now teaching and what they call advocacy, or, and so now they sort of confuse these two and arguing that, no, what we really are doing, we're trying to stop now, are teaching on these topics. But wait, we don't really say you can't teach it. We're just going to say you need to have our approval, some exemption, because you might be advocating. Now, the question here is that I think there's some some citizens who are looking on this don't really know, or may not be fully realized, is that these policies were not sort of instituted, I would say, in a very democratic way. When the legislature had a chance to approve these policies, some of the politicians, they put this stuff in the bill. I was there. I was arguing against it. On our hill here in Austin. And we were saying, don't do this. It's going to damage our education. And you know what? Too surprising. I have to give credit where credit is due. The Republicans said no. They took it out the bills. They would not advance the legislation forward. And so they said, okay, yes, you should not advocate for anything. And we agree with that. Sure. Our job is not to promote a particular agenda. Our job is to present the full picture for students, especially around contested ideas, so they can make the decisions for themselves. But we're teaching them about the facts, the evidence, and how to distinguish between misinformation, disinformation, and to be prepared for this broad world. I mean, you may not agree with everything, but at least you are aware. So they failed at the legislature. So now they have come down, to the universities and have backdoored it, through our board of regents. So it doesn't take a vote; it just take a governor who wants these things done, and he's appointed a board of regents that they're going to follow his orders. And now we have these very draconian, highly censored policies that essentially tell me when I walk into my classrooms, I have to deny, basically, who I am. I'm a black man, and I'm supposed to sit there and say, oh, I can't talk about my experiences because they have not approved that, and I have to whitewash this, and take out all the juicy parts that they need to understand and know, because someone says, well, who I am, they want to de-emphasize, and that is highly unfortunate.
Questions for my panel. I'll start with you, Matt.
So, Dr. Bright, I was going to ask about the tenure law. I know tenure had come up, and I know you were talking about some of the changes there in Austin at the legislature. And I guess my question is this, twofold. First, is there a concern that if you teach something outside of the bounds of what's been expressly approved, that it'll be called professional incompetence, and then essentially you'll be on the chopping block for, allegedly having been professionally incompetent? If so, before you answer that, I'll tell you there's a corollary between that and exactly what they did with DAs in Texas. To try to control district attorneys, they tried to change what constitutes professional incompetence. But what I'm specifically interested in is just kind of from a due process standpoint, what rights you have as a professor, because the concerning thing to me is this is really the last bastion of free thought, right? I mean, colleges and universities, you're supposed to really grapple with these ideas, especially in a class like ethics. So where are the bounds on that? What are your due process rights? What kind of autonomy do you have on what you can actually teach that doesn't have to be rubber stamped by the administration?
Yes, so that's a great question, and really, the way they have done this, they're essentially have removed our due process rights. So basically, the way this sort of exemption process is working, this is sort of like a trap. They're saying, and they tried to apply that to me. They wanted me to be dishonest in terms of what my class is about. They wanted me, they didn't want to accept that an ethics class, a public service no less, should not discuss issues of race, gender, and sexuality throughout the class, especially given the power that public servants are going to have. As we see today, we see with ICE, we see all this. I mean, these are public service that will come through a program, like ours, and our job is to help them do their job better, do it well for behalf of all citizens. So the way they're doing this with this exemption, they're saying, okay, all right, put on paper exactly what you're doing. Tell us every little detail, and if we allow you to do the class, you got to stick to that. And we might tell you you can't do these kinds of things. So we're going to censor this, but we'll let you do these things over here on this day or that day or in regards to that. And now you've put it in writing that this is all I'm doing, right? And we're going to approve it. And now down the line, when a student comes or someone sets you up and say, wait a minute, Dr. Bright was talking about this on day 2, but you said he can only talk about this on day 4. I mean, he put that in writing. And guess what? They've already told us that we can be penalized up to and including termination. So and these are things that even as a tenure professor, I mean, I am the only Black tenure professor in my entire college. I am the only one that has ever been promoted to full professor in the entire history of my college. So right there, it tells you that there's a race issue here at Texas A&M when it comes to professors. So despite all that, if I had a student to come say I somehow misrepresented, the university is going to say I misrepresented my class, and I can lose my tenure. I mean, they'll draw me up and dismiss me potentially for cause. One of the administrators said if we're found to have intentionally done it, we can be dismissed. So it just throws all this into flux. Again, Texas A&M have said that they have these policies. We're seeing that they're quite willing to violate them and just give a reason. And right now, I fear that many of our faculty members, in an effort to keep their jobs, are voluntarily and unintentionally sacrificing their academic freedom and the quality of their education, by these tactics, that Texas A&M is now using to, as you say, whitewash and purify our education of any idea that they disagree with. And today it happens to be race, gender, and sexuality. Next week, tomorrow, next year, is going to be something else. They're going to add to this.
Roland, can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Real quick, Professor Bright. So what are you seeing on the ground in terms of the effect this is having on the back end with the students? And what I mean is, are you seeing students who are, attacking grades, or rather appealing grades, for instance, that you give on the basis of, hey, I held a different position than what I thought Professor Bright was advocating for, or he taught this thing and he's not taking into account my political ideology? I mean, is that affecting on the back end what you're able to do in terms of your appraisal of a student's work as a professor?
Yeah, so I have not seen any personal evidence of that. I'm sure it is quite concerning for all of us as faculty that, especially, we see examples at Oklahoma and so forth, where professors or instructors were basically accused of being arbitrary when someone literally did not do the assignment. I mean, it was like, okay, take this article, tell us academically what is, your reaction, and the student took the perspective of the Bible. And it's not that the Bible cannot be applied. It's just that in an academic setting, that is not a legitimate academic sort of source, to use. So that professor was dismissed on the grounds that, well, you were arbitrary, when everybody knows that at the end of the day, this is not what we expect, from our students. So there is fear that the way they're setting this up, especially with this ethics point, that we call the snitch portal, where basically students are and faculty are told, snitch on each other, tell on them, tell us, if they're doing something wrong, so that we can bring the full force of the state upon them. And this could definitely can involve grades and grade disputes when someone comes in and say, you disqualify my perspective. So it really speaks to the importance of us designing our course in ways that demonstrates that we're not trying to disqualify anyone's ideas, as long as they're not hateful or illegal. I would say that's my line. If it was not hateful or illegal, let's talk about it. I don't have to agree with you. You don't have to agree with other points of view, but I want you to hear them and understand them and apply them if possible.
Raven.
Professor Bright, thank you so much for coming on to the show tonight and sharing this harrowing experience. As someone who spent most of my life in academia before I became a content creator and correspondent, I am just so heartbroken to see how the academy is being attacked in particular ways by this regime and Project 2025 and sort of all of these various apparatuses that we're seeing play out on local levels. I really want to talk about recourse. Do you have any recourse in a situation like this with the Board of Regents? And also, how does this impact your feelings about staying at A&M, right? I can imagine that it's created a very hostile and uncomfortable environment for you personally as a professor.
Yeah, so really at this point we have no recourse to change these policies. It is clear that despite the opposition to this, and I'm one of the, I have not seen any evidence that this is what all of Texans, the majority of Texans want. This is not what our employers want. This is what a very small group of very powerful, I would say conservatives that are pushing their agenda on everyone else. So we have no recourse at this point, especially given that our universities are and our border regions report to the governor. So there's nothing immediate, that we can do. They can put these policies in place. As a matter of fact, they've strengthened their ability to do this, without any need to consult anyone. I mean, they don't have to talk to us. They don't talk to anybody. They can do what they want to do now, and that has been even more strengthened through these latest laws, SB 37 and so forth. I think the only immediate thing that we can do is for the parents and the students and the end users of education to realize that this is not what we don't want our students, our young ones, to be unprepared for the world that is here and that is growing more and more diverse. And that's as has been Roland alluded to, that the world is changing and this country is going to change. They see it. They see it in high school, and they're afraid of that. So they're trying to put the things in place that will try to hold that back. But so the things that we're trying to do now is, especially as I'm the president of the American Society of University Professors here at College Station, is to kind of prepare the faculty, give them some advice, provide legal assistance as they need it to try to, first of all, certainly keep their jobs, but also encourage them that they can stand up, that they can, we can try to push back as best as we can against these incursions into higher education. My personal feelings about being here, I believe that I was brought here. I was brought here for a purpose. I'm a religious person. I believe in destiny, and I don't believe that God makes mistakes. I arrived here probably believing that I'll be here for 2 years and I'll be gone. But I came here and I just got to work, and there were just things here that I saw that I wanted to improve. I wanted to try to contribute to, and these issues just called on to me. They pointed me out, say, "Hey, Leonard, here I am." So I have no intention of leaving. I certainly have plenty of opportunities to people will say, "Hey, come over here, Dr. Bright. We will love you to be over here," and certainly I can. But I believe that these issues that we see right now on the front lines are about to affect everybody in this country. We're just seeing it here in Texas, in the red states. They're leading the charge. But if they can do what they're doing in Texas, what they really want to do is get this instilled across the country. So running away from this from Texas isn't going to solve this. If this keeps going on, it's going to be in every blue state. It's going to be everywhere. So why not stay where I am and do the best that I can to push this back.
And again, they want to run black people off. They want to do that. Michael.
Well, Dr. Bright, thanks for coming on and sharing this with us. This is an extension of the anti-critical race theory laws that we saw in various states over the past few years. You answered my question dealing with exemptions. So the question I will ask you is, looking at this policy, it prohibits the teaching of race or gender ideology, among other things, in the core curriculum. So my question would be, you may not teach this subject, but how would one teach history under this current policy? How would you teach the history of slavery, the Civil War, the Reconstruction era, the Civil Rights movement? How would one navigate, throughout that? Because this has wide-ranging implications when it comes to academia.
Absolutely. And so one of the things I see this as, facts isn't an ideology. That's a fact. This
Right.
happened. Nor am I responsible for how someone accepts a fact and how they feel about that fact. That's their subjective judgment. And if a fact of what has happened has struck you in such a degree that it makes you consider and say, I am sorrowful for what this country have done to other people, I think that's a good thing, especially when it's bad, especially when it dealt with extermination of people, slavery, and and the horrific things that America have done in history. So understanding those facts is not an ideology. My attempt to teach those facts, I am not teaching it. It is what it is. I don't, accept it or not. And beyond that, just the idea that I would want to intentionally teach something to say my race is more superior to you. That I want to shame you. I'm trying to teach this to shame you. The whole thing is built so much of in a normative, negative way that it almost says it's not instruction. It's something else entirely. And the way the policies work is that we have to somehow acknowledge and accept that we want to do that. And so if you can't accept that you want to do that, you won't get an exemption, almost making us make a determination about something that, first of all, even before any accusations that it even has happened, but we're presuming then that it will happen, that you're going to make someone feel bad and you're going to intentionally seek to do such. So these kind of policies are just really bad, and they're designed to again to target people who they don't want to be here, target education and the kinds of information that they don't want to be told, because they see education as a spoil, as a to the victor goes the spoil. They have the power. They're a small group, but they have the power, and they get to remake education in their image. But education, public education, especially something that Texas A&M does, a land, sea, space grant institution, is the purpose is to serve the public broadly. In other words, this is a public good that we all deserve to have. And unfortunately, they don't think that. And that's just why this university and universities that do things like this should not be considered to be a serious system of higher education.
All right, thank you.
And just in case anybody was wondering, I'll pull the photo up. This is Bill Mayholmes. Bill Mayholmes is a Texas A&M graduate. Bill Mayholmes. Well, guys, come on, let's go. Bill Mayholmes went to A&M one of the early days when there were virtually no African Americans there. Later became chair of the Board of Regents. And you know what he's done? Nothing to protect black students or black faculty or black interest. When you look at many of these votes, they have been unanimous. When they had the whole controversy under the previous president, and dealing with Kathleen McElroy being hired to run the Texas A&M journalism department, Bill Mayholmes was chair. He allowed this nonsense to go on. They had to pay out a big settlement. And so here's the reality. No, leave it on there. Okay, they know what I look like. They know what I look like. They know what he looks like. When the Kathleen McElroy stuff went down, I called Bill Mayholmes. I got his cell phone from multiple people. He never returned my phone call. He never returned any emails. He avoided me. My name was brought up to him by a couple of other people, and again, he did not want to address the issue. And so this is also part of the problem, Professor, that you are laying out. The problem that we have is we have some black folks, some Negroes who sit in high positions, who sit on boards of regents, who do nothing, who are there to clearly enrich themselves, who are happy just to be there, who play a go-along to get along game. And I'll say this, and I have no problem saying it, and I really do not care. Having a black member on the board like Bill Mayholmes is the same as having a white board member on the. They are simply all lackeys to Texas Governor Greg Abbott, and they do nothing at all to protect the interest of African American students, African American faculty, and it's simple as that. And I'm quite sure, Professor, you haven't even heard from Bill Mayholmes, and you won't hear from Bill Mayholmes because he is not there to protect the interests of African Americans.
Yeah, certainly he's a part of the board, and he is certainly. I mean, I've sat in meetings and I've listened to them call out the votes, and I've always held out the hope that I would hear a lone no, and I have not. So So certainly I don't know him personally, and but certainly I don't agree with what he's been voting for. Absolutely.
Well, I have met him. I have known him, and I'm telling you right now, Bill Mayholm serves no purpose. And as a black Texas A&M graduate, frankly, I'm ashamed that he's on the Board of Regents because he certainly does not represent any of our interests whatsoever. And let me be perfectly clear, Bill Mayholm, history will go down. History will go down and record your silence. And history will record how you allowed these things to happen and you said nothing. You did nothing. When racist texts were discovered, what these Board of Regents were saying, these white Board of Regents were saying, going back and forth over the Kathleen McElroy hiring, you knew that they were attacking that black woman with impeccable credentials. And you said and did nothing. And you know I reached out to you as a black Texas A&M graduate. And so it's shameful that he sits there like a bump on a log and says and does nothing as black faculty members, as black students, as diversity comes under attack. And so how different is Texas A&M in 2026 than when it was when they denied entry to black students? So yeah, it needs to be said. And yeah, Bill Mayholm needs to show some courage because he is certainly doing a disservice to the ancestors and to all the black folks who fought to make it possible for him to be able to enroll into the Texas A&M Corps Cadets when he went there. Professor, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase, and I'm here with a very important message. We are at a turning point in the black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity for creators. So right now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.